Good morning, everybody. So, hopefully everybody's getting the swing of things. If you're my existing group, I think most of you have joined by this point. Anybody who's new to my classes, just join along, see what you can make your way through. But if anything hurts or if anything doesn't feel like you're doing it correctly, then take a break, sit back, rest during that set, and then next week you can try back on those things. But it's better to really feel like you're doing things with no pain and really pushing yourself to knowing what you're trying to work on. So we're going to start with a little bit of rocking just to find the center of your balance. So I want everybody just to start with your arms down by your side and just rock front to back without your heels lifting off the ground and without your toes lifting off the ground. And just find that nice relaxed position that your legs and your calves and your toes just stay relaxed as you rock. And now let's find the middle of that, so right around your big toe knuckles, and then let's drift left and right, making sure that we don't go outside of our big toe knuckles. We're just trying to find that space in the center of our balance where we're nice and connected with our posture. And then lastly, let's do some circles. And the whole time we're doing these, on top of trying to keep your legs relaxed and your arms relaxed, I want you to be engaging your posture. So shoulders should be pulling down towards the ground as your ears are trying to find the ceiling. Your ribs are anchoring down towards the floor, but you're just relaxing everything else so that all the concentration can go on to keeping that core connected. And so let's switch our direction and go the other way. Make sure you're not hula hooping here. Your hips should be in the same circle as your shoulders. Good, and now let's find the center. And now let's go ahead and go with some marches. And so we're gonna start our marches with no weights in your hands. And guys, anytime I tell you that you need to pick up a weight or you have the option for a weight, I'm also gonna tell you what to do so you don't need the weight. So if you don't have what you need, then you can make the best with what you got. So let's go ahead and start with our forward, side, and up arms. And we're just trying to get some blood pumping a little bit and figure out how your posture is waking up this morning. And really feel that you're in the balls of your feet. I don't want anything back here where you might feel your back or your butt muscles working a lot. We want to feel length going through the front of your thighs with each step down. Good. And so let's keep those arms going. Good. It's a little loud on my mat. I think I'm going to come off. Good. And so keep those shoulders away from the ears. As your arms go up, you should feel the sensation that your ribs and shoulders are almost anchoring downward against the arms moving upward. Good. So now let's let your arms come to a rest and just give me a couple out, out, in, ins. Just a few more seconds of just getting our warm-up going. Make sure your elbows are punching back on these. Good. We don't want our arms way up in front of us. They like pushing backwards much better. Now go in place for a second and then do the other foot out first. Good. And just keep switching back and forth between those out, out, in, ins. Nice. Feeling the length in the back of your neck and the ribs anchoring down here. And now let's go ahead and rest our feet. And we're going to do some squats. So if you have a band, pick up a band. If you don't have a band, you can use nothing and just think that you have the band in your hands. And so I want you to squat your hips back as your arms reach up and forward. So as you're going back, your arms are going up. Good. I want you to come tall through your hips every time you come up. Make sure that you're not shortchanging and coming halfway up on these. You have to open up the hips. Good, and let's give me two more here. Pushing your hands wide into that band. Good. And now let's go ahead and rest for a second. Keep your band handy. You're going to use it again in a second. But this time, if you have some weights, let's grab your weights for your marches. Something of the same weight. Heavier might be a little bit better than too light, but whatever you have is fine. And so we're going to go back into those marches that we were doing before. Note that I'm picking up my toe when I'm marching. I'm not pointing it down to the ground. I want that toe pulling up as I drive length down into the other leg. Shoulders should be reaching to the floor. Don't try and hold them up. Drive them down and feel that connection of your upper abs and your lats as those muscles work. Feel the length in the back of your neck. And now go ahead and rest. set the weights down out of the way so they're not going to be a trip hazard. And then we're going to do a different type of banded squat. So for this one, again, any band will work. I'm going to go a little bit heavier with my band on this one. So take your time, but get it around your thighs here. And however it works best for you, everybody's got different ways of putting the band on. You can sit, you can balance, you can hold on to something. Just make sure you're taking your time and you don't fall. All right, so our next one is squats as you push your knees wide into that band. You don't want your knees sliding forward at all. Your hips are driving outward as your knees push, and you're not letting any slide forward of your knees as you come in that action. Feel the back of the neck lengthening away from the shoulders. So you're looking downward at the bottom, up at the top. Downward at the bottom, at the wall at the top. Make sure those hips are coming all the way tall. If you have a weight, you can hold the weight right here and do the same thing. Feel the length coming away from the neck. Feel the shoulders pulling away from the weight. Feel the ribs anchoring towards the floor. And make sure that your knees are pushing into the band each time. Good. All right, so let's take the band off. And we're going to do a little bit with your upper body on the floor. So hopefully you're warming up, ready to come out of your sweatshirt if you're in one. But let's make our way down to the floor. And if you need something to sit on here, make sure you have it handy, whether it's a small block or whether it's a big block. Making sure that your feet, your knees, your ankles are comfortable when you come back here is good. And if this isn't even comfortable or you don't have something like a super block to use to hold it, then this position may be good. Or worst case, rest like this in between these sets, because I need your arms to be relaxed. They cannot be weighted like this while you're waiting in between sets because they're not really resting that way. All right, so we're going to do a couple beasts. And with the beast, let's try, if you have a yellow band, let's put the band right up next to your elbows. Okay? And now spread the band so that your arms are where you would normally want them for the beast. As you lift off on your beast, you can try and do some in-place marches, but if just staying here is all you can do, it's always about the hardest thing you do well. So just stay up in that position. Knees are barely off the ground. Shoulders are pushing away from the ground as far as they can. The back of the neck is lengthening towards the wall in front of you, and your chin is just relaxed with your neck. And if you can walk, if you can march, that's fine. We got 10 seconds left. Remember, lots of little teeny steps. We're never trying to give big steps on this. And now rest your knees down and sit back onto your feet or your block or whatever feels good. Let your hands come out of the band so they're not stuck together. And we're going to actually put the band down, and we're going to do a set with no band this time. So with the beast, when you're doing these, this set, I want to do a little bit of side stepping, going back and forth. Now again, if you don't need to move yet, or if you're not controlling your position and feeling that your knees are relaxing, your toes are relaxing, the beast is all about waking this area up and a little bit of the back of the neck. We're trying to wake it up. So if you feel this in your knees, your back, or your hips, I'd say just work on being on your hands and knees and having the idea of lifting off and practicing that release feel. You want to feel that the knees melt apart and the ankles melt into that stretch. You don't want to feel like you're trying to pull and push and try and keep. If you feel yourself shaking up there, it's probably wrong, okay? So for this beast, we're going to go with that side action. So go ahead and lift off your knees and then just go slowly to the side a couple steps and then back to the middle of your mat. Go back to that same side. We're going to get both directions just by going to the one side because you have to go back to your beginning. And let's go one more time. Your opposite hand and foot should always lift at the same time. That helps your pattern and it makes sure that you're using the right muscles to engage. All right, so we're going to do a little bit of bridge work. And with the bridge work, we're going to use a band if you've got it. So down onto your back with your heels together and your knees pushed apart. But make sure that those heels stay touching. You want your knees to be pushed apart as far as they can, but if the heels leave each other, then you're using the wrong muscles. So let's go ahead and lift those toes, push those heels like you're trying to drive them away from your body as you push your hips up into the air. Now as you come back down, make sure that you're releasing the hip muscles and then pushing through them. So you're not trying to hold tension the whole time. We're really trying to teach it to turn off and to push on. Turn off, push on. So that way this system, our stabilizers, are working the whole time while these are learning how to push and release. And push and release. Now hold it up at the next one. Keep trying to drive your heels so that your body feels like it wants to slide up away from you. Lift one leg off and give me 5 release and pushes on that single leg. If you're getting constant cramps on these, try moving your foot a little bit further away from your body that way. If you still keep getting cramps, then just go back to the 2-legged one. No reason challenging yourself into failure. We want to do the hardest thing you do well. So make sure that that lifted knee is trying to stay relaxed and out to the side a little bit. We don't want him to try and help you up. We're making that driving heel push the hip up and release the hip down on the working leg. Give me one more. And then relax. And let's go ahead and take the band off. And we're going to go back over onto your hands and knees. Hoping to give you guys a little bit of break on your arms in between these sets. All right, so next we're going to do some tricep push-ups. And the rule is on the tricep push-ups is that you should feel your triceps, your lats, and your abs working. If you feel your shoulders and your neck working more than anything else, you have to make it easier somehow. This is the easiest position that we can do this in, where we're in a hands and knees position and we're tipping our butt up as our head goes down. If that's too much, or if that's not enough for you, rather, try using something like a chair and you can get into this position here. Okay? So just make sure that this is a good challenging position, but you're not cheating to the point where all you feel is your neck and your shoulders doing the work. All right, so we're going to go for 45 seconds of just doing tricep push-ups. So the elbows are going to go at a 45-degree angle. The forehead and the hairline is right about where you want to angle towards touching the floor. We want to inhale on the way down, exhale on the way up. And the same thing as those bridges. Relax the arms as you go down, push the shoulders away from the ground as you come up. And focus on those shoulders staying anchored down, the ribs staying anchored down, and the length in the back of your neck being constant. So you're holding on to the posture as your arms turn on and off to produce your push-up. Use those exhales, pushing your shoulder away from the floor, lengthening your neck every time you do that, and making sure you're never looking up. If you're looking up, your neck is in a bad position, and we want to make sure we avoid that when we can. Give me 3 more. And anytime if you need to stop a little early, that's fine. And let's go ahead and sit on back. Roll your shoulders for a second. Shake any tension out of there like you're shaking water off your hands. Good. And now we're going to go into another bridge set for the single legs again. And the same thing. If you have the band, go ahead and grab it. If you have a stronger band and you want to try that, you're welcome to. Just make sure that you're not getting caught in a cramp fest. And if that is happening, relax your legs out long anytime that you're really cramping, because you're just going to be fighting yourself and the cramp if you try to work through it. So start with those heels together. If you got cramps, push them out a little bit further away from your body and lift your toes up in the air. Elbows need to be nice and planted on the ground. Hands can be down too, but the elbows are really where I want you to put your tension, so those shoulders and abs are having to work in this as well. All right, so let's go ahead. We're going to go 10, pushing through the heels, driving the knees wide, and anchoring the ribs to make sure that we're not popping up higher than where we're working the abdominal connection. Releasing as you go down, exhaling and pushing as you come up. Good, give me 4 more. Feel those elbows pushing in the ground. If I were to come around to you and try and lift your arm off the ground, it should be stuck to the ground like glue. Now stay up there, float one leg, give me 5 singles on each leg, dropping and pushing. Using those elbows, no rotation through your body. Good, switch legs and push through the down heel to drive the hip up. That floating leg should remain floating, no work from it. Keep it wide and make sure those elbows and abs are trying to stay anchored to the ground. And relax, and let's come out of your bands. All right, so we're going to come back up to your hands and knees again. If you want to sit back just to make sure your arms aren't getting tired while I'm telling you what we're going to do. And so this time we're going to do an elbow plank. And with the elbow plank, I want a saw plank for anybody who has been doing this and needs a little extra challenge. But make sure that if this is new to you, you're not pushing yourself into the saw plank without really figuring out the regular plank. So, hands forward, elbows on the ground. Head should be looking between your elbows as you set up for this one. And then as you step back into your plank, you're going to push your straight hips down and push the length from your elbows down to your toes. You want all the energy coming through the front of your body, but your shoulder blades are pulling your body open as you push your elbows. Good. Keep driving that energy. If you want to add some saw planks in, make sure your butt does not come up in the saw plank. Keep driving those ribs and shoulders down towards the toes and use it as a bit of a foot release. 3, 2, and let's rest your knees down. Stick your butt way up in the air so you have a nice neutral back. And then walk your hands back and rest onto your feet for a second, or your block, whatever feels most comfortable. We're going to do another tricep push-up. This time we're going to go slow on the way down and fast on the way up. So again, avoid any positions where you feel your back or your shoulder or your neck doing all the work. We want our shoulder blades, abs, and core doing most of the work here. Triceps, of course, working. So hands and knees position, unless you're going up onto a chair or a counter. And let's go ahead and go down nice and slow. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then push away from the ground as far as you can. And then down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and push, and down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and push. Now, do me a favor, everybody sit back for a second. If you have a band, I want you to put the band on your elbows. If you don't have a band, just think about what the band would feel like and what you're trying to drive into. But I want to give you a little bit more work to isolate those triceps and to feel what you're trying to connect through your lats and your upper abdominals. So when we're doing this set, sorry, my band just got all wrapped. As we're doing this set, you're going to be pushing your elbows down towards your feet, but out to the side as you do these slow push-ups and coming up. And so that's to make sure that you're not letting any pinch come into your position. So just keep the band in position of a stretch on it. And let's go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Push everything away. Keep the stretch on the band as you let your elbows bend. 2, 1, and push. Down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Push. Give me 2 more. Inhale as you're coming down, and exhale as you push away. 1 more. Driving into that stretched band to push away from the ground. Now, the main reason for that band is just so you can feel a little bit more feedback to the area I'm looking to train. If you don't have a band, it's quite all right. Just keep your focus on trying to keep connected through this area. You'll get it. So our next one we're going to do is a side bridge. So let's everybody come down onto your side and stack both knees in a bent position. Your feet are cocked and more back towards your butt than anything. If you were to put your hand down the side of your hip, you should be pointing at your feet. That's how you know if you're in the right position. If you're like this, then you're going to feel a little bit too much rounding in your back. So make sure that you feel a nice hinge at the butt. All right, so we're going to drive our hips. Well, first we're going to push our elbow away from us so that we really engage our lats. And then I want you to drive your hips low and forward until they're up in that straight position. You can put your arms straight up to the sky. That can sometimes help you feel if you're square. If you feel like your neck is coming in, look down, look up, and find a nice neutral position where you're focusing on pushing your body away from your elbow rather than holding yourself up. Good. If you want to straighten out your top leg and give me some little taps, you're more than welcome to do that. If you just want to let your arm rest on your side, that's fine too. Just make sure you keep pushing your body away from your elbow as your hips drive forward. Don't try and stick them up in the air. They're really low and forward pushing, not up. Good. Give me 5, 4, 3, 2, and we're going to bend that knee, stack it back up, and then push your hips back so you hinge at your butt instead of rounding and twisting through your back. And now let's go ahead and switch over to the other side. We're going to do a couple sets on each side, but let's keep your arms fresh. And when we're trying to do one side, it ends up usually getting pretty tired in the neck when you're just starting these out. So our next one, same thing. Let's go ahead and push your body away from your elbow. Make sure that your body is in line, and then push your hips low and forward as you drive them off the ground. You can put your arm up to find that good position. Look up, look down. Find where your neutral neck is. Good. And then you can also straighten out your top leg and give me some lifts. But make sure you're reaching through the heel. You're not trying to come up too high with that lift. You're really trying to draw a line as long as you can away from your butt bone with that heel. 3, 2, good. Let's go ahead and stack your feet back up. Push yourself back to relax, and then we're going to swing on over to the other side again. So with this one, we're going to do very similar. Let's go straight into the leg lifts if that's good for you. If not, stay with what you're doing. So let's go ahead and push your shoulder away from your elbow, push your chest away from the floor, and now drive your hips far forward and low to the ground. Lengthen out your top leg and give me some little pulses. Good. If you feel tension in your neck, do a little look down, look up. Find that neutral position and just lengthen your neck away from your shoulders. Good. Keep pushing away from the floor. 5, 4, 3, 2, and let's go ahead and bend your knees and push yourself back and rest. And let's go one more time over to the other side. Good. Good job of getting up and doing this today. It's a dreary morning. It's a day you want to stay in bed, so you guys all get the gold star for getting out of bed and doing this morning. All right, so now that we're on the other side, let's push your chest away from your elbow. Make sure your body's in the right position, and then drive your hips forward. Arm up or arm down, but don't let it touch the floor. That's only going to cause twist in your back. If you can't do it without the floor touch, then I'd say don't do it. You can work on regular planks if you can't do it without lifting that hand up. And you also don't need to do the leg lifting if it comes at a cost where you feel like you have to do this. Hardest thing you do well, and anytime that hand is touching the ground, you're twisting, so that's not considered to be well. 3, 2, keep pushing away from that elbow to the end. Bend the knee, push yourself away. And let's go ahead and I want to come back up to your feet. Take your time here. Grab some water if you need it. And we're going to do something that gets your heart rate up a little bit and brings you back onto your feet. And depending on what you have, if you have a kettlebell, then I'm going to say we're going to do shoot-throughs. If you've never done a shoot-through before and the thought of letting go of your weight to hold it at the top is really scary, then you're going to do this type of squat. If you only have dumbbells, And I don't have dumbbells, but I can at least give you the look and feel. If you only have dumbbells, you could try thrusters, where you're going down and driving your arms up with each squat. But I would recommend those with some lighter weights. You could even do those with no weights. It's all about explosiveness on this set. So I want to see you push your hips away from the floor and get that body to generate some power. So it doesn't really matter how much weight you have, it's how much you can control the speed you're trying to go. So we're going to do shoot-throughs or chest squats or swings if you know swings, but if you're new to swings, we'll do a little session on how to do a proper swing, or do a little research on the internet. But please don't just jump into a swing if you've never done one before. All right, so we're going to do 20 seconds on, we're going to rest a little bit, and then we're going to go back on again, okay? So let's find your position of hold, whatever squat you're going to do. Knees push wide, drive hips away from the ground, and let's go for a set of these. Slow, reaching the hips wide, pushing that power away from the floor. Your arms are doing very little with that bell. Your hips are generating, one more, are generating the power. Hold the weight up here. Do a little marching. If you've been holding the weight there the whole time, your march can look like this. Just make sure it's not here. You're really reaching to the ground with that opposite arm to keep yourself safe. All right, so let's let our feet come to a rest. Widen them up and back to your squats. Explosive on the way up, slow and wide on the way down. Head reaching as you go down, head lengthening as you go up. Never looking up with your chin, driving length through the back of your neck. 2 more. Keep it up. If you've been doing the shoot-throughs, drop it down to the other side if you were doing the holds. Good. All right, we got 1 more of those, guys. I know. Heart rate should be going, so let's get it going a little bit more. 1 more. Wide as you go down, shoot to come up. Wide knees, shoulders away from ears. Keep your focus on what your form can sustain, not trying to go lower, deeper, or faster. 3, 2, give me 1 more. Keep it up there, march it out, bring it down. And now, I'd like you to try and grab the weight behind your back for a second here. And just let it hang here. Make sure that your weight's in the balls of your feet and you don't feel anything like this. Your ribs and your hip bones should be right over top of your ankle bones. They should not be behind your ankle bones. Feel the length of your neck pulling you up towards the ceiling as your shoulders drop towards the floor. Feel that stretch through the back of your neck. Feel your abs having to anchor to keep that weight from pulling you backwards. Feel the length in the front of your legs and the contact you're making with your big toe knuckles on the ground. Your toes are loose. Your heels are touching but loose. Your ankles are relaxed. And you're just letting a nice little stretch come in. All right, so let's go with a balance exercise real quick. And with this one, I would err on, we're going to use a weight if you have it. Something relatively, I'd say middle ground, meaning not your heaviest thing, but a 2-pound or a 3-pound probably isn't going to work for this either. But if that's your level, that might work for you. So I'm not going to say it won't. Just make sure as you balance on one leg, that's what this exercise is going to be, that you can easily circle that weight around your body without having to shift your hips or roll your shoulders around. You're really trying to keep your shoulders loose and anchored towards the floor as your arms work loosely around your body. Now, you notice I never even took my foot off the ground yet. And so let's switch and put a light touch on the other side of the other foot without really lifting it off, and reverse the direction of your circle. And so what we're doing with that light touch is I want you to feel that you don't always have to pick the foot off the ground for you to really focus on this width coming between your middle thighs. When they're pinching together, your balance is not working productively. We're really trying to find that. It's almost the position of a Y or upside down V or an A frame, I call it in class a lot. You never want to be in an I position or something that's crossing over. So let's go ahead and switch feet. We're going to do the same thing again, but this time if you can challenge yourself to let that foot off the ground, go for it. It doesn't have to be the whole time. Maybe it's just for one, maybe it's just for a half. But challenging yourself and then using the floor if you need it teaches you what the success on the front hip or the balancing leg should feel like. But if you're constantly pinching every time you bring your foot off the ground, that's not going to help you to train yourself to do better with your balance. So let's switch legs and let's go around the other side. And if you lose it, again, just keep focus on those shoulders and ribs anchoring to the floor. Balance is driven by this area, guys. It's not held by the foot. You, in balance, have to learn to let the foot go a little bit. We can't hold it in our toes and our ankles. It's up here so that those can be free to react and move a little bit. It's better than trying to lock everything and then all of a sudden your posture starts falling apart as you try to find your balance. So, nice job. Go ahead and set that down. Grab a quick drink of water. And let's go ahead and we're going to do a little bit of a lunge position exercise. If you have a big block, it kind of helps on the setup for this one. If you don't have a big block, then you can start with a small block. I mean, that might work. And you can also start from the top and just go down into it. But this just makes it a little easier when you have something down there to check that you're doing the right position and that it doesn't look different from when you're here and when you lift off, right? So I want you to get into this lunge position where one foot's forward and out to the side. If I show you from the front, it's out to the side a little bit, but my hips are still square. I don't want it across you. I also don't want it so open that it's pulling your pelvis into that position. Keep yourself square, but keep that nice A-frame where your legs are apart. And now all I want you to do, I'm going to turn back this way so you can see it. All I want you to do here is just lift off your back knee and hover on that block. My body still stays right in a line on top of that leg. If you can, raise your front heel, but make sure that front knee is not pinching in or the back knee is not pinching in. It'll feel like a big stretch on the front of your hip if you're doing this correct. You really want to tuck your hip under so that you can keep that stretch on that. You don't want to feel this position where you've bent your hip into an angle. We want straight hip, tucked under, so that you can feel all that stretch coming through the quad and the hip flexor. Now, relax down to your block and switch legs. Stay facing the same direction. It's a little hard to keep track of which leg you had in which position if you keep turning around, but whatever works for you, I'm fine with it. Tuck your toe under in the back. Find your good A-frame position in the front, and then just hover off of that back knee. Lift off the front ankle if you can, but make sure your body doesn't shift away from that perfect line on the back leg. If you had a weight, you could put a weight here. You could even do some little heartbeats. But for today, just work on tucking that hip, making sure that you feel the energy through the quad and you don't feel anything going through your knees. 3, 2, and let's go ahead and rest down onto your block. And we're going to do that one more time. This time, if you've done this before, you're more than welcome to grab a weight. It doesn't have to be really heavy. It just needs to be something that engages your core without pulling you out of it. So, hold the weight so that the bell is, the horn of the bell, the handle is at your chin. Pull your shoulders down, ribs anchored. Lift off your knee. Lift off the front heel. And concentrate on that front hip stretch on the back leg as you keep yourself perpendicular to the ground. Straight line from the back of your neck all the way down to the back knee. Knees loose and wide. 5, 4, 3, 2. Rest your knee down. If you want to bring the weight down for a second as you transition, feel free to. Switch your other leg forward. Bring your weight back up into position. And let's Lift off the block, hover the front heel, keep the shoulders down, keep the ribs anchored, keep focusing on the stretch in the front of your back leg. 10. Keep the front heel lifted, keep the knees loose and wide, keep the length in the back of the neck away from the shoulders. 4, 3, 2, and rest your knee down. If you don't get a little bit of a wiggle in that one when you're doing it, you're either a powerhouse or you might be resting or you might be doing that wrong. It's a hard one. So make sure that you feel that shake or that fatigue in these areas and never these areas. If you feel that, then please reach out to me and I'll give you some pointers to make sure that that's not something that you're continuing. All right, so next we're going to do a little bit of sidestepping and or hip work, okay? And so for this one, if you have a band, that's awesome. We'll try and use it. If I also may even pull in another band, and again, I'm not going to use this today, but if you can have for the next time something set up so you have your big long band so that you might be able to, and again, we're not going to do this today. I'm just showing this so you know what you're looking to set up next time. You're either doing squats pushing into the band, or we can do side steps where we're driving into a lunge and pushing back. We can also work through squats where we're pushing our hips back. There's a lot of things we can do with this. So if you can, we'll start adding that in next week to a couple exercises. If you don't have it, we can still do the exercises just without the resistance. But for today, let's go ahead and I want you to put this band, we're going to do it on your ankles first. Then I'm going to challenge you guys into a 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It's really to check your form. So let's do one set, just kind of feeling what you do naturally, and then we'll see what you do when we add in the challenge after the second set. So let's put these around your ankles. If you want to hold a weight, you can hold a weight in front of your chest. But just so you know what you're doing before you pick the weight up, you're going to get into a squat position, hips back, knees wide, and we're going to diagonally kick the back or the moving foot back and out. I want you to pretend that the back foot is on ice the whole time, meaning a really thin sheet of ice. If you were to put weight down on that back foot, you'd fall bloop, right into the water. So make sure that all the weight is on the solid ground on the stationary leg. All right, so let's go ahead. If you have a weight, grab your weight. We're going to go 30 seconds on each side. If you need to rest in between, feel free to. Hardest thing you do well, don't push yourself past it. All right, lengthen through the back of your neck and give me those little tap outs. If this starts to get boring and you want to add a little challenge, you can do some clocking as well. Just make sure it's light on that back foot. But make sure that the hip that you're standing on is really pushing back without losing the knuckle of that big toe. 3, 2, and now let's go ahead and stand up tall. Let your weight come down. Rest it behind your back or in front of you, whatever feels better. Feel the length in the back of your neck. And now we're going to do the other side. So let's bring it back around. Pull the weight up. Shoulders down, ribs anchored. And let's go to the other side. Keeping that working leg, the stationary leg, wide in the knee, but heavy on the knuckle. Big toe knuckle. Good. You should be feeling that stationary hip burning a little bit here. If you want to do some taps, that's fine. Just make sure you're not weighting them. Good. 3, 2, and rest. Good. Let's go ahead and take the weight, put the weight down, take the band off for a second. And we're going to do the same thing on the next set, but I don't want anybody to hold a weight. This time, if you have the band, you're going to try an exercise where you're going to put, I'm going to angle this down just a little bit. You're going to put the band around your foot, and then you're going to step on the knuckle of the other band and stretch it. Try and hold your weight in the balls of your feet. And look, your toes do not have to be crunched under into the ground. That will actually make it come off. And we want to limit that snap. So when you're in this one, keep your toes loose. Keep the weight in the balls of the feet. So if your heels are a little lifting, you can feel that stays. But if you rock back into your heels, that'll snap all day, right? So we're going to do a set where the knuckle foot, or the one on top, is going to stay still. Go down into your squat. And now those same diagonals without letting that band unsnap. It's not that easy. And if you have trouble with it, fix it once or twice and then just go back to your ankles, because it's not worth just being so frustrated. You can practice this in your own time, but what we're really working on is making the right muscles in the leg stabilize and make sure we're not pulling tension into your knee. 3, 2, and rest. And let's go ahead and we're going to do the other side. So same thing, put the band around your foot up near your shoe tie area. I need to give myself a little space. Step of the knuckle onto the band. Stretch it out. Feel that you got a little heel play, but don't lift them off the ground and keep them there. And now work on that in-out position with both knees trying to keep outward without losing contact of that big toe knuckle. Good. Keep your toes loose. Keep the length in the back of your neck. And keep pushing your hip back from the knuckle without losing it. 10. Good. 5. And relax. Come on up and rest. So, the last couple times that I've been doing these workouts, I'm going to angle this back up so you don't have to see my feet. So, the last couple times I've been doing these workouts, I've been trying to, at the end, to go into some sort of stretch or some sort of myofascial release. And every single time, I do it a little too close to the end of the hour. So today, that's the end of the hard stuff. We're going to do a little bit of stretching so that I make sure I don't run out of time before we come to the end. So, what I'd like everybody to do is, we're going to start, because I don't know what everybody has in terms of equipment, we're going to start with one that I know everybody can do because they have a floor and a mat. If you don't like, or it's a little bit more difficult to get down to the mat, and you have a block like this, you are more than welcome to put your knee on that block as you get into this position. If you don't have that block though, you can just get into this position on the floor with one foot forward, right? Just make sure that your hips are square forward, your shoulders are square forward, and you're not twisted open in any way. And so all I want you to do is just drive through the middle of your knee that's on the floor and feel that stretch that comes into the front of your thigh. Make sure you're not trying to do this stretch. This is not what I want. I want you really just trying to figure out vertical. If you look in the mirror, I want to see straight line from your knee to your shoulders with no lean. And really just keep driving the energy through the middle of your knee and make sure that you're not sliding on top of the knee where you feel the weight on the outside of your kneecap. You always want to feel like you're driving through the middle of your kneecap in this stretch. And so let's go ahead and switch to the other side, whether you're on the block or on the floor, it doesn't matter. Take your time here. Be safe. And then same thing. Find the middle of your kneecap, drive length to all the way up to the pubic bone so you feel that stretch through the front of your hip flexor and your quad. Again, resist leaning forward right now. We're just trying to find neutral stretch on that front hip. Good. Perfect. And so on this, we're going to do a hamstring stretch next. And for the hamstring stretch, there's a couple different options depending on what tools you have. If you have a band, I'm going to show you something that you can do with a band. That's great. I'm also going to show you what you can do if you don't have that band. So if you have one of these, like a lat pull-up resistance band, They're great, love them. Usually you can find them in a set on Amazon or somewhere. Try not to spend a ton of money on them. Sometimes one can cost $40, but I've also found sets that cost $50. So, I mean, it's much better to get 4 or 5 of them instead of just the one. So, if you're going to do the band, actually, I'll show you the band afterwards. First, I want to show you the not band. If you don't have a band, you're going to rest with your feet up on top of a chair. And you're going to put one foot down on the outside of the chair. And what you're going to do is you're just going to pulse your foot up towards your face and down towards the ground. And all I want you to do is try and find that nice hamstring stretch in the back of your thigh. If you feel nothing at a chair, then you might want to find a higher surface. But just make sure that you're not letting your pelvis tuck off the ground. We really want to keep your butt bone flat on the ground with whatever position you find on the chair. One other little thing that applies to the chair as well as the band, when you're in your hamstring stretch, your knee should not be bent. So if your knee is bent, you need to ease up on what you're trying, the range of motion of your stretch. So if you put your knees up onto your feet up onto the chair and your knees are bent, you probably won't feel a stretch. So that might tell you you're too high, so go a little lower to the ground. Find that place where you can straighten your knees, and then try to move up slowly from there. So if we're going to use the band, right? So anybody who's stretching the legs on the chair, go ahead and just kind of be there and do that. If you've got a band, you're going to put that band around your foot. You're going to bend your knee so you can cinch up onto that band, and you're going to work on pushing your knee straight. Now, my flexibility says I can do this, but this is where a lot of people will start with this exercise. You're trying to find where can I go, what's the hardest position for me to get to, where my knee goes straight and it doesn't pinch across my body. It's able to stay in that nice wide position. Same thing, if I go up too high, now I can't straighten my knee anymore, so that tells me I can't go there. This is the highest I can go. And so just give me 5 more, just finding that nice position. And I'm really holding a lot of tension on the band right here. If you don't have enough tension on the band, you'll start feeling this in the front of your hip because your leg is having to hold itself up. We want to use that band for you just to push into. So now let's go ahead and switch to the other side. Good. Put your elbows on the floor if you can. Straighten out your bottom leg, but make sure your pelvis stays square as you try and find where is your straight leg push going to take you. And if you're in the chair, you can just rest for a second. We've only got a couple more on this one, and I'll go through something a little different. Good. Hold it up there in that nice stretch. Let the toe fall toward your face as your knee stays straight. And then go ahead and rest out. Now, the next one, you're going to put both feet into the band. If you don't have the band, you're just going to put your feet together and let your knees come apart on the ground with no band. So it's a butterfly stretch. And I didn't say it, but if you need a head support here to make sure that you're not feeling any back arch or any discomfort in your back, then that's perfectly fine. Please use head supports whenever you need something to reduce any tension somewhere. And so you're just laying here, letting your knees fall apart wherever that is for you. It doesn't have to go out any wider than this. Maybe that's your range of flexibility. And that's okay, but just make sure your ribs stay anchored and you're not letting your ribs pop up to try and see if you can put your legs out wider. That is destructive. So we want to really keep our back in a nice neutral position as we let those knees fall apart. Good. And so next, we're going to do just a little bit of ball work. And so anybody who's worked with me before knows to love to hate the ball, okay? So if you have a lacrosse ball, that will work. If you have MYT-ROLLERs, these will work as well. For the demonstration today, I'm going to use the ball because I think the blue MYT-ROLLERs kind of get lost in the mat. You might be able to see the ball a little better. But what I want you to do is lay down. You can have a head support if you like, whatever feels comfortable. And I want you just to stick, you're going to put one knee bent and one leg straight. Whatever leg that is straight is the one we're going to work here. So what I want you to do is just stick the ball right next to your butt. And I don't want you to lift up and put it under your butt. That's too much. I just want it right beside, just underneath. If somebody looked at you from the side, they'd still see the ball. It didn't disappear under there. And so now what I want you to do is turn your hips and your shoulders until you are resting all your weight onto that ball, and it does not feel good, guys. I promise. I'm sorry. I like to give you stuff that's a little bit painful because we have to get in tune with what discomfort is and what pain is and how to process and deal with it. But this is a productive pain because we're trying to dig into some locked up muscle and fascia that needs to be released. And so after a good workout, and now that you've gotten into this position, just slide your knee, bending it and straightening it so you almost massage your hip underneath that painful ball. Good, and then relax there. With a little knee bend, I want you just to lift your knee but keep your foot flat on the floor, kind of like a clamshell action now. And so all this massage and trigger point release will help your hips move better, and healthy hip movement means healthy spines, healthy bodies. It's when we don't get into this stuff that's really painful and we ignore it that it becomes a problem that starts to plague us. And so now let's go ahead and straighten out that leg, roll on back to your back, and then let's go ahead and switch. And we're going to do the other side. So straighten out the other leg, let the knee that you were just had straight bend up. And now, same thing, turn your whole body. Make sure you don't leave the arm, the back arm behind you. This will cause a twist in your back. So always make sure that the hand comes with your body as you turn. And same thing, once you find that pain, go ahead and bend and straighten the knee as you let your foot drag on the floor. Massage that hip and make the discomfort reduce. If you do this a lot, guys, I promise it will reduce the pain in this. It's just the first time, and sometimes when you haven't done it in a while, it will really be painful. But we need to get to the bottom of that stuff. We can't just let it hide from us and then sneak up and hurt our backs or hold tension so we become too unstable in our backs because we're moving through our spine instead of moving through our hips. So do the knee bending lift. So keep your knee bent and just lift your knee off the floor, but keep your foot on the floor. And just give me a couple of those. Feeling the hip, try and relax under the pain. Don't hold on to the tension, try and let it go. And then slowly roll back onto your back and relax. Now, the last thing we're going to finish with, and I might get cut off in time, but I think we're still good and we have enough time. The next thing is rolling your foot on the ball. And I will say that if you've been with me before, you know how I like the lacrosse ball. But more and more, I've been using my MYT-ROLLER, and I like this ball even better now because one of the problems, I'm going to angle the camera down just a little bit. One of the problems with the lacrosse ball, and I'm going to put this here, maybe it'll give us a little backdrop so you can see. One of the problems with the lacrosse ball is that you have to get your ankle into so much flexion to keep your heel on the ground and to get the ball into those uncomfortable spots that sometimes people with tight legs or tight feet can't quite do this, and so they're like this. And when that heel's off the ground, your body senses it is a little bit dangerous, so you're not going to release the same as when you do it with your heel loose and touching. Same thing goes when we try to do the front, and or when we go to the front of the foot and we try and roll out the heel. We want to make sure that we're not doing something that's so scary that it causes you to not do as well. So now I'm going to use the ball. I always like to keep the blue balls out to the side, but you see how now I can get into that same spot everywhere on my foot without having to be in extreme flexion on the ankle. And it's hard. It is harder than the lacrosse ball because it's wooden, but this isn't meant to feel good, guys. And you can decide how much weight to put on it. I mean, I'm putting 95% of my weight onto it, but I could go a little lighter and then settle into it. So you're not trying to kill yourself and make it hurt. Well, yeah, you kind of are. You're not trying to make yourself resist it. You're trying to train yourself to release through it. So that's why it's better to take your time with this and don't push into something that hurts don't push into something that sticks with you. We want to just wake up this fascia, wake up the muscles. So let's switch to the other foot. And same thing, we're going to work through the front of your foot. And you notice I'm not doing a lot of this. I don't want it to be a rolling action. I want it to be a landmine action, meaning you're trying to hunt down really sensitive landmines in your foot. If it hurts really bad, don't go away from it. That's actually an area that needs to get worked on. Don't give it so much weight that it sends you into a place where you can't breathe. We don't want to get caught in that place either. But we want to just teach our body how to release tension and how to associate some discomfort that's temporary into giving us something that is a benefit that lasts a lot longer. So what I'm going to say is in a couple, when we finish this rolling, if you're doing it, I'll have you walk around just a little bit right after you're finished, and I can almost guarantee you're going to feel that it feels different. Your foot feels a little looser. Your ankle might feel a little looser, even your calf, even though we didn't touch your calf. Because we have to make sure that we're not leaving our feet out of the equation. They're really important. They are the keystone to our balance and our movements every single day. And so if we're not taking care of our foot health, then we're really going to blame a lot of issues in our spine, our back, our hips, even our knees can be driven from the feet. So nice job today, everybody. I'm going to cut off before we end up getting cut off for me. But as always, I love that you guys are getting up and doing it early in the morning. And if you have any questions, just please reach out to me and I'll be happy to answer them. All right, have a great day, guys.